So guess what, everybody? Jayden Daniels is him. He is a big boy, and I'm telling you what, he did not disappoint whatsoever in his first ever playoff game with the Washington Commanders. We're going to talk about that in today's video. Let's get it. And welcome back to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs channel. My name is Greg. I am your host. And normally we have Brandon Scott here, but he is inundated with videos with Locked On Wizards, so he will be joining me soon. But besides that, if you haven't yet subscribed, please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel. And of course, when you do, make sure you hit that notification bell so you won't miss any other video releases. Let's get into this. So, of course, the Washington Commanders got the 6th seed in this year's playoffs, and of course, they were going to have to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it seems like every time that the Washington Commanders, Washington Redskins, football team, whoever you want to call them, it seems like that they always seem to draw either the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Green Bay Packers, or Seattle Seahawks, but usually it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Washington Commanders, of course, last time that they were in the playoffs, 2020, they were Washington football team at the time. Taylor Heinicke was the quarterback, and of course had his famous run to the end zone, this dive to the pylon to score for the Washington football team back then. Of course, eventually dropped that game to the Tom Brady-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which eventually Tom Brady would lead that team to the Super Bowl. A few years later, the Washington Commanders are in the playoffs in the wild card game, going against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was definitely not a game to disappoint. It was a back and forth game the entire time. Defense like crazy. Both teams made some big defensive plays, but both teams also made some pretty good offensive plays as well. Both quarterbacks played pretty well, but Jayden Daniels just being so cool, calm, and collected like he has been all season, seemed like that he treated this game basically like any other game. It was a big game, but he was going to take this team on his shoulders, just like he seems like he has done in the last 3 or 4 games, and he was going to win this thing for us. Dyami Brown, I'm telling you, I have been waiting for this cat to just break out for I don't know how many years, and last night was definitely his biggest game of his career. The big play I felt that really changed the complexion of the game was that fumble from Baker Mayfield. Bobby Wagner recovers, and suddenly the Washington Commanders are in business again. This is definitely something when you need a good defensive stop, because Baker Mayfield's offense was really, they were smoking that defense. They really were. They were moving up and down the field, running the football, passing to Mike Evans, they were just really taking it to this defense. But this defense was trying its best to come up with a play when they needed it the most, and that was a play that they came up with. So one thing I did notice about the defense as well, even though that it seemed like they were bending and quite frankly breaking at times, you still saw them trying their best. When a running back was rushing for almost 10 yards, they would have a gang tackle there, they would push him back, they would try to lock things down. But it was a tough time because Baker Mayfield really had this offense cooking. Let's take a look at some of the stats here for the Washington Commanders versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So of course we got Jayden Daniels, who was 24 for 35, 268 yards, averaged 7 yards per pass, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he had 36 yards rushing. A quarterback rating of 80.4, not too shabby. Now the rushing attack was something that was a little bit to be desired. Austin Eckler had 8 carries for 27 yards. Brian Robinson had 10 carries, but only 16 yards. And of course, Jeremy McNichols, only 1 carry, 1 yard. So the rushing attack was pretty much stuffed for the Commanders, which again is the reason why Jayden Daniels had to take the team on his shoulders and will them to another victory. But then you got the receiving yards. Jamie Brown, a huge night, 5 receptions, 89 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin, 7 receptions, again 89 yards, 1 touchdown. Austin Eckler out of the backfield had 3 passes to him for 26 yards. Zach Ertz had a couple of passes his way. Brian Robinson, he got a few of his rushing, or I should say a few of his yards out of the backfield as a receiver, 4 for 22 yards. Omalad Zacchaeus, 3 catches for 19 yards. Overall, again, you can actually look at this and say this had to be an offense that was going to live or die by Jayden Daniels, right? Because Tampa Bay was stopping the run and trying to force Jayden Daniels to be the guy to win you. And you know what? That is something that honestly is very good coaching. Make that offense one-dimensional, force Jayden Daniels to beat you with his legs, to beat you with his arm, and he did that. And he did it with ease, too. He did it with his coolness. You could tell he wasn't rattled. He wasn't rattled at all. I mean, he was calm, cool, collected. And he really looked as if that this is a normal thing for him. And it really, honestly, I think it's going to turn into something very normal for him. So now we're talking about the Detroit game, right? Looking ahead to Detroit. Of course, if you listen to a lot of other fans out there, they're going to say, you know what, Detroit's going to smoke Washington. So Detroit is one of the best teams in the league right now. They've got a dynamic offense. They can score at will. Honestly, they kind of remind me of that 1991 team that we had in Washington where Mark Rippon and company, they could beat you quickly. They can move the football down the field methodically and score, or they could beat you with, one pass downfield to Gary Clark. Fast forward to today, and Detroit seems like they have that type of offense. Jared Goff has really turned himself into a fantastic quarterback. One of the better quarterbacks, not one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, the defense for Detroit, they have had so many injuries, that they epitomize the old saying of next man up, because honestly, they are so thin on the defense, not even funny. They've had so many season-ending injuries. Washington's going to need to try to stop this team, slow this offense down. I think if they can slow them down, they can keep the score relatively close, especially in the fourth quarter. I think good things can happen, but that's going to be a big ask, definitely a big ask for this defense. It's going to be a game, man. I mean, I'm psyched about it. Win, lose, or draw. Of course, there won't be a draw, but win or lose, I'm still proud of this team. They have won their first playoff game in 19 years. As a lot of people have said on social media, right now the Washington Commanders are playing with house money. This team is so far ahead of schedule that they don't need to go out there and prove anything. There's no expectations on this team whatsoever. They're just going to go out there and they're just going to play. Any improvement with this team on defense, offense, whatever, it's going to be extremely scary for other teams. So folks, let me know in the comments what you thought about the game. And guess what? We are moving on. Divisional round, baby. Take care and hell to the Washington Commanders.